let's talk about open relationships. So this topic is a big thing, right, in the gay world. Of course, there's straight people who have open relationships, but I feel like when it comes to gay men, it's a way more common phenomenon. It's pretty pervasive, and it's funny because I remember being a lot younger and being disturbed by the concept of an open relationship and not getting it and getting kind of grossed out by it. And now I've just gotten so used to it just from meeting gay men who are in open relationships or seeking open relationships, even on apps, seeing guys who say, looking for a third partner, on here for fun, my partner knows I'm on this app, blah, 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 blah. So it's become a pretty normalized concept for me, and I think for a lot of other gay men. But it's fascinating because I think this is one of those subjects where the opinions are so extreme. It's like people are typically at one end of the spectrum or the other end of the spectrum with how they feel about open relationships. They either are totally for it, totally get it, totally support it, or they are repulsed by it, think it's disgusting. So let's explore this subject further. First off, I believe that there's multiple reasons open relationships are more pervasive with gay men. I think the first thing is that with straight relationships, heterosexual relationships, there is a gradual sort of process that you're supposed to follow, right? Like there's courtship, then they date, then they get married, and then they have children, then they have grandchildren. There's a whole evolution to that process. Whereas with gay men, there's no blueprint for us, right? Like we're not supposed to be. We've been historically so taboo that in a way it's a good thing we don't have a road map planned out for us. Until, a handful of years ago, it wasn't even a possibility to get married. So I think a lot of gay men don't care about marriage, don't care about the wedding. They don't necessarily want to have kids, and children are obviously harder to produce when you're in a gay couple. So I think it's harder for a gay relationship to evolve the way that a straight relationship does. And so I believe that then a relationship might stall, the spark kind of fizzles or whatever, and then oftentimes couples seek more excitement and more fun in the relationship, so they introduce the concept of an open relationship. People always say, well, men are a lot more sexual than women, and stereotypically gay men are very promiscuous. I don't believe all that stuff. I think that there are women who have a very high libido, very high sex drive. I think what has happened is society tells us that women have not as intense of a sex drive, and so people have subconsciously believed that and use that excuse, use that reasoning to say, well, I am going to be promiscuous, or if they're already in a committed relationship, I'm going to be in an open relationship because I'm a man and I have needs, right? People always say I have needs. I think for these reasons, gay men are just more likely to have open relationships. And, gay men are kind of forced to discuss their sexuality, right? Straight people don't have to walk around saying, I'm straight, I'm straight, I'm straight. Gay people, there's an expectation in our society that we're supposed to be out and communicative and open about our status as gay people. So once you get used to that process of having to come out, having to reveal that to the public, I think you just become more comfortable in general talking about sexuality. Not every gay man, obviously, but gay men tend to be more open, I think, discussing sexuality because they're kind of forced to begin with having to come out earlier on. The great thing about that is, ideally, that would mean gay men are more likely to express that they have desires outside of a committed monogamous relationship, and so they pursue the open relationship route as opposed to just having an affair, right? That's the stereotype that I hear a lot of gay men in open relationships say. At least we're talking about it, at least we're both aware, not like straight people who have affairs. I get that mentality, but the reality is there are gay people who still have affairs and who still cheat, and there's straight people who have open relationships. So again, I think men and women are more alike than they are different, and I think straight people and gay people aren't really that different fundamentally. But this is our reality. There's a lot more open relationships in the gay world. Although I don't see myself ever wanting an open relationship, I've learned to respect it because I don't really have a choice. I know a lot of gay people. I've met a lot of gay people in open relationships, but I have had to learn in life in general that if it works for somebody and they're happy, that's the best thing we could do. This reminds me, this is so random, it has nothing to do with this video really, but I saw this clip on Dr. Phil, well, on YouTube, of the Dr. Phil show, because I would never actually watch the Dr. Phil show, but it was fascinating, and it was this man who dresses up as a dog. That's what he does for fun. Every day he eats dog food out of a bowl, he dresses up, he has a costume, the whole thing. He likes to stick his head out of the window, pant like a dog, and it's weird, right? It's like you're not used to that. But then I was thinking, he's not going into any schools shooting up anybody. You know, he's not slitting his wrists, he's not a drug addict, he's not hurting himself or hurting anybody else, and this seems to make him happy. And there's so many other people who don't know how to express themselves or do things that make them happy, and who end up hurting themselves or other people as a result. So obviously, totally random example, but my point is, people should just do what works for them and what makes them happy, as long as nobody's getting hurt. There are men who are totally fine being the third party in an open relationship. There are men in open relationships who are completely happy with their arrangement. My opinion is that as long as there's communication and everybody's on the same page, you can't really go wrong. I do wish that gay men would maybe publicly, in front of straight people, not talk about their open relationships as much, just because I think it feeds into this concept that gay men are promiscuous, and that's such a big part of what it means to be gay. So that's my only thing. I wish that gay men in open relationships maybe would only talk to other gay men about their open relationships, but then I think, well, we shouldn't shame people. Shame is the root of a lot of evil and a lot of negativity in our world. So maybe being more communicative publicly about this kind of thing would reduce stigma. But I'm like, why can't the straight people reduce the stigma? Why do the gay people always have to do the work? Anyway, these are just my quick thoughts. Let me know what you think about open relationships. And if you've ever been in one, would love to hear the stories.
In the jungle, there are whispers. In the jungle, there are mysteries that await us.